This lesson will be a short lesson on how to compute statics once you have an elevation model or what we call refractor earth model. So at this point, I'm going to assume that you have constructed a model, and the way we look at that is we can look in a velocity profile, and we can click along here, and you can see we have surface elevations, refractor elevations, we have a variable V0, or the weathering velocity, and then we have a refractor velocity roughly around 6,000. It actually is varying slowly. It doesn't vary much, and that's why it's showing up as a solid red, but it is a variable refractor velocity field. But anyway, we can see that we have a refractor that's sitting about, let's say on average about minus 50, minus 60 feet along here. There's minus 60 along here. So let's say we want to put a let's say we want to put our datum. We're going to put an intermediate datum right here at minus 60. An intermediate datum means what I'm going to do is I'm going to move from the surface down to the refractor at the weathering velocity, and then from the refractor down to the intermediate datum. So in this case, let's say it's minus 60. I would move from here to here at the refractor velocity. Over here, where I'm deeper than a refractor, what I'm going to do is move from the surface down to the refractor at V0, and then back up to the refractor, to the datum, the intermediate datum at the refractor velocity, about 6,000. Okay, so I'm sort of going to be, effectively, you think of this as scraping this off. So I'm going to replace this, get rid of this whole model here, and then I'm going to scrape off this red stuff down to minus 60, and then where I go deeper than the where the refractor goes deeper than the intermediate datum, I'm going to fill in with the refractor. So I'm effectively coming to a surface at minus 60 that's going to be all red beneath it, and then there's nothing above it. I've removed all the model. So it's like a mathematical bulldozer, or a geophysical bulldozer, if you will. And then I'm going to put a final datum at 100, which is right up here. Okay, so in the delay time here, we have this model building window and compute statics. And let's call this statics 1. And then we'll go next. And this is where we choose that intermediate datum. Okay, so the intermediate datum will be the constant elevation in this case, and we're going to put it at minus 60, if you recall. And then we will put the final datum at 100, and we'll use a replacement velocity that's somewhat close to the refractor velocity, let's say 6,000. Next, now I'm going to force the statics to be zero mean. Later, when I output them, I'll just say do not shift them. I'll recompute them again. But this time I'm going to, for the sake of QC, like when we're stacking elevation statics versus the final statics, this way the stacks won't move around much, and we'll be able to compare them pretty much at the same time. So all the events will be sitting at the same time if we compute the elevation statics to a zero mean also. So I'm going to force the final statics to a zero mean and finish. Okay, so it's done, and we can see the statics here, and these are the statics, and you can see here's 0, so it's pretty close to what we wanted. Well, it is zero mean by definition. We actually compute them all, divide by the average, and we compute an average and then subtract the average, so it's zero mean by definition. Now let's also compute elevation statics while we're here. And I'm going to compute elevation statics. I'm going to use a final datum of 100, and I'm going to use a replacement velocity of, let's say, 3,000 feet per second, and then force the statics to be zero mean. So I'll create the statics field. And that'll do it. We can now look at elevation statics someplace here. Statics elevation, and that's what they look like. And there is a way over here in the database, let's say in the shot table, where we can compute the difference between two statics fields. So we can let's see here, we can say I want to create a I want to take the elevation statics and then and I also want to, well, let's just look at the difference between them. Elevation statics versus the statics 1. And let's do run the query. So here's our statics. And you can see they're pretty close here. We can also plot them. And let's see, we can easting, northing, and then elevation statics, reload plot, and let's shrink this a little bit here, just to compress a little bit to see it easier. And then I'm going to look at the elevation, the refraction statics also, reload plot. So obviously there are differences. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to stack using both elevation statics and refraction statics, so we can compare stacks along any kind of profile. Thank you.